just a teacher tip, is to reflect on what went well, reflect on what didn't go well, and make notes and adjust. It's not something we need to beat ourselves up about. It's just data. It's just information. And then we take it and then we improve what we've got.
You are listening to the Super Bloom Coach podcast, the podcast for life coaches ready to 10x their business. I am so excited for today's episode. I have my dear friend, an amazing fellow life coach, Ashley Wood, with me. Ashley is a dedicated educator and life coach who supports teachers as they navigate the emotional challenges of the profession. By day, she teaches kindergarten in Washington State, where she lives with her husband and 4 sons. After spending a decade as a stay-at-home mom, her life shifted when her son was diagnosed with cancer in 2013. Through faith, family, and friends, she found strength during his treatment. But afterward, she faced anxiety about the future. Discovering life coaching transformed her perspective, leading her back to school to earn a master's in education and become a certified teacher. Now, with over 10 years in the classroom and certification as a coach through the Life Coach School, Ashley helps fellow educators break free from overwhelm, reignite their passion for teaching, and end each day with renewed pride and purpose. Thank you so much for joining me, Ashley. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
So I'm really excited about this episode because our studio is known as a luxury branding studio. People know me for luxury branding, but it's really only half of what we do. The other half is content marketing, which I think is so vital for building your online presence, your thought leadership status, just your platform as a coach. We do it for our own business. We do content marketing, and that's really how I've grown. And then we help our clients do it too. And I really think it is the way to go. But I talk to so many coaches who are overwhelmed by the idea of social media marketing, content marketing. They just don't know where to start. And you have this amazing approach that is so simple. And so I would love to just dive right in, if that's okay.
So as teachers, we're creating content all the time, right? And especially in the elementary and younger classrooms, I'm not just like a high school teacher who's teaching the same content 7 hours, 7 times throughout the day. In an elementary classroom setting, you're creating content for the first hour, and then you have a whole nother lesson plan and content that you're creating for the next hour. And with kindergartners, which I'm a kindergarten teacher, they have an attention span of maybe 8 to 12 minutes. A lot of my my approach is creating kind of these little mini lessons throughout the day, and that takes a lot of preparation, a lot of time. And when I became coach, I was a little bit intimidated of making content for Instagram, content for Facebook ads, content for, a webinar, a mini lesson. And I think it's something that you have talked about on your podcast is you like lean into what you're good at. And I realized, Ashley, you do this every day, like multiple times a day, and you can create content just like you create content in the classroom. You can do it for your business. And so I just have a couple of steps that I've transferred from the classroom to content for coaches.
We actually are talking today about her expertise, Ashley, your expertise in creating content and how you can approach it just like you approach creating a lesson plan. So the first step that you shared with me is to know your audience. So important. So let's talk about that.
Exactly. Like if I am teaching kindergartners, I have to know what they already know, what info they're looking for, and what I can teach them. When I'm creating a lesson plan, I actually have a template in my lesson plan that has a little section like, what do they already know? And I think we can do that for our clients as well. What do they already know? We know as coaches, we've been trained, we've been certified, we have our own curriculums and our own things that we know. And sometimes we think, oh, everybody already knows this. Like, what is the point of getting on and teaching this? Because everybody already knows this. Guess what? They don't. They don't. Yeah, so many people haven't been exposed to life coaching. They don't have the mindset tools that we've been given. And so don't be afraid to start with step one. Like, start with the basics and then build from there. The magic is finding the problem that they want solved. And I don't think that we have to be necessarily an expert. We are thought leaders, but that doesn't mean that we are 12 steps ahead. Thought leaders can be 1 or 2 steps ahead. I mean, it's a funny joke, and there's been lots of memes about teachers who are, I'm a teacher, I have a master's in education, but sometimes I'm still Googling, like, what is a phenom? There's just certain things like you forget, like, and so right before I teach a lesson, sometimes I'm looking up things in my curriculum, like, oh, I forgot what that was. And I just need to be a couple of steps ahead of my students in order to teach them.
That is so true. I have heard that so often. We do think we have to know all the things, but if you're so far ahead, like you said, 12 steps ahead of your audience and your ideal client, you're like too far ahead of them. They can't catch up to where you're at. I hear all the time, you're just a few steps ahead of your ideal client, of your ideal audience. I had a coach one time who explained this to me, because we all think this, right? We know our own stuff so well that like we're like, what, you don't know that? Like one of my own coaches one time, I think he called it, there's like a name for it, it's like the teacher's curse or something, and it's this idea of like assuming that people know what you know. And so we talk from that perspective, like, which can really hurt us in attracting our ideal clients and stuff, because if we speak in our own jargon and our own professional language all the time, they're not there yet. We got to get them on board first. I talk to my clients about this just when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization. All the time I'm talking to my clients when we're figuring out their content, and like we're thinking of keywords for their content for search engine optimization, and they're at their professional level, right? But like we have to get back to where the audience is. What are they Googling? What are they searching for, right? They're not thinking like the model or like I need a coaching framework to take me from point A to point B, right? How do I lose weight? How do I, how do I fix my marriage, right? We can't be in our coaching mindset when we're trying to help the client connect with us. We have to get in their head and think about where they're at. So that is so great, Ashley.
So that would be my first suggestion, especially if your content isn't connecting with people. Like, go back and just look at the language you're using. Like an example, in kindergarten, I had a student that I just kept telling him, put your pencil box in your desk. And he wouldn't do it. And so finally I went over and I said, do you know what a pencil box is? And he said, no. I said, do you know what a desk is? He didn't know what a desk or a pencil box was. And so I had just assumed that he would know that. And so I had to say, this is your desk. This is the top of your desk. This is the inside of your desk. And I had just assumed every kindergartner came in knowing that, but this particular student didn't. And so just the second tip, I guess, is have your goal in mind, like your end goal in mind. In the classroom, we always have a learning target for each lesson, or in a broader sense, we have standards that we're working towards. The standard for kindergarten, for example, is that by the end of kindergarten, they should know how to write and count up to 20. Obviously, that's what I'm working towards. Right now, we're just in the first quarter, and so we're working on connecting objects 1 through 5, and then we'll get to 1 through 10. I start with the end in mind, and I make a long-term plan. I always start with a yearly plan and pace out everything I'm going to teach for the whole year. And then I'll break it down into quarters, and then break it down even more into like, what am I going to do for the week? And then what am I going to do for the day? And so I think we can do that in our businesses as well. And it's important to have kind of these long-term goals and not just be creating content day to day. I teach teachers about the window of tolerance. Like, where's your window of tolerance? Because some days we have a large window of tolerance and we can deal with anything that comes our way. But then, maybe you woke up late, you didn't get your morning routine in. A student came with baggage that day, and your window of tolerance shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. When I'm teaching them about the window of tolerance, I don't want to like put a mini lesson out here and then start talking about social emotional resilience and then go back to window of, like, I want to build on it and I want to have a plan. That would be my second step, is start with the end in mind and make a plan.
I think not just for lesson planning and content planning, like for life, start with the end in mind, right? You got to know where you're going. You got to have those big goals, because otherwise it's just busy work. And we can really see how this translates to content, because, you know, the way I approach content is I do long form content like podcast episodes, YouTube videos, and then my team and I, we break it down into mini little bite-sized pieces of content that lead to the bigger content, that lead to the funnel, right? All of that. And like when I talk to other coaches and entrepreneurs who are not so familiar with content creation, that like what you hear all the time is like, I don't know what to post today. I never have that problem. I always know what to post, right? Because we have the end in mind. Let's speak to that just a little bit more, because I think this is so important, not just having the end in mind as far as your content is concerned, but what is your content doing for you? Like, we don't just create content to create content. It's like, are you creating this content because you have a launch coming up? Are you priming the audience to know like what the problem is, that you have the solution, and then you're going to launch your program, right? Like, we don't just create content to create it. We create it to grow our businesses. So this is such great advice, Ashley.
Hey, Super Bloom coaches, let's take a quick break. This episode is sponsored by my exclusive Luxury Brand Leader program. If you're serious about elevating your coaching business, then you have to check this out. Luxury Brand Leader is your chance to work with me one-on-one to totally transform your brand and realign your business for exponential growth. This is the only logo and website design program designed exclusively for coaches that builds your luxury brand and sets you up as the go-to leader you were born to be. Imagine a complete 360-degree luxury brand transformation done in just 90 days. You'll get personalized coaching, cutting-edge strategies, and the exact steps you need to become an unstoppable force in your industry. When you become a luxury brand leader, you can finally start to attract clients who daydream about working with you, and they're willing to pay the big bucks to make it happen. Imagine being able to unapologetically raise your rates, magnetize high-paying clients, create a captivating personal brand, and showcase your high-value expertise. Are you ready for a branding experience that will revolutionize how you show up in your business? Apply to become a luxury brand leader today at mariahriona.com. Remember, spots are limited and they fill up fast. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to transform your business. Apply now.
Moving on to like step 3, and we can come back to 2, but like the fun part, once you have your big plan and you know what direction you're moving in, the next step, step 3, is to create these learning activities. And I think that's the fun part. Like, how are you going to catch their attention? How are you going to present the information? And what you're saying is, I think people go to the fun part first, because it's not always fun to sit down and make a plan. And so people just kind of, oh, what would be fun to do today? Let's do this. And the learning activities really are fun. Like, I enjoy creating content. I enjoy creating a slideshow. I enjoy creating a reel or whatever. I really enjoy that, but it has to have a purpose. And so putting the planning before the learning activity, I think, is essential.
We need to have this approach with everything in our business. It's not just the content. I talk about this in my own business. It's like, I got so busy at first because everybody wanted a pretty logo, and I can design you a pretty logo all day long. But if we don't do the strategy ahead of time, is it telling the right story? Is it evoking the right emotion? Is it connecting with the right audience, right? And we see so many people want to dive into Canva and start making the Instagram posts. But just like you said, like, that's the fun part, but you got to do the work first. You have to figure out where you're going.
And that's the value of a coach, right? Because our brains, I think, naturally go to that, oh, this is easy, this is fun, this delights the eye, sitting here and creating something that's pretty, a pretty logo. And DIYers, like, I think that's where you naturally go to. And so there's the benefit of having a coach who can get you back on track, right? I was recently coaching a client, and same thing, like, when we started talking about her goal, which was to get 5 clients in 30 days, and we were trying to, narrow down the process to doing that. But then her brain kept going, oh, but I also need to do this. And I also need to do this, bringing her focus to like all those extra little things that seem fun and seem important can actually be distractions from your big goal.
It's true. Like you could almost equate it to buffering, right? You jump straight to and a lot of times I think as entrepreneurs, we're like, oh, but I'm working. And it's like, yeah, but how many clients are you getting from scrolling on Instagram? Like we have to be really clear with these boundaries. Like, are you actually creating work that is driving results? Or are you buffering perhaps, doing the pretty fun things instead of having the strategy in place and like distracting yourself and not getting meaningful work done?
So once I have a plan and I know what my objective is for the week, then I'll schedule the learning activities, or what am I going to do this week? And I think it's important, like you said, put a time limit on it so that you're not using it as a buffer or as a distraction. And then step 4 is we always check for understanding. So at the end of a lesson, there's end of unit tests, there's all sorts of ways that we check for understanding. Daily, I'll do I'll just ask them thumbs up, thumbs down. I just am always checking in with them to see if they understand. We can be doing the same things with our clients, is checking in for understanding. I know I follow you and your Instagram. You do kind of the fun stuff with the little polls, checking for engagement. Like, are people really engaging? Are they responding to this? Are they accepting the invitations that I'm putting out there? And that can also help us see if our plan is working, right?
Yeah, that is so important. It's so funny you mentioned that because I'm going through this in my own business right now. I launched a course last year that was a luxury branding course, and we had a really great launch and I got a lot of people in. But then when I started like interviewing students and stuff afterwards, I realized that it wasn't actually like hitting the marks that I had set. Like they weren't having the complete understanding that I wanted them to have. They weren't having the transformation I wanted them to have at the end of the course. And so we are actually in the process right now of like burning it down. I'm redoing the whole thing, and it's just a small little $97 course, but I felt, because I realized that it wasn't landing the way I wanted it to, that the clients or the students weren't having the understanding that I wanted them to have, I didn't feel comfortable promoting it anymore, starting from scratch. And like, I've taken that feedback, and I think it's so important, especially if you want to build your business with integrity. Like, I don't want to just make money. I don't want to just promote this thing. I want it to actually be giving the students the results. We're starting over basically. And like, we're listening to the feedback that we got. We actually interviewed a lot of students and said, hey, like, did you get what you needed out of this? Where did it fall short? And so we're making those changes now. But I think it also goes back to, I think it was step 1, right? Like, sometimes like we assume that they know something, right? But then there's also this assuming that after we've taught it that they understand it and know it, right? And we have to just constantly be checking in, right?
And reflection is part of the process. I mean, you're not beating yourself up about this. This is just all part of the process, right? Like, how many times do I have a lesson that I think is going to be like, the kids are going to love this. This is going to be so great. And then it lands flat and what in the world happened? And so I do take time every day. Just a teacher tip is to reflect on what went well, reflect on what didn't go well, and make notes and adjust. It's not something we need to beat ourselves up about. It's just data. It's just information. And then we take it and then we improve what we've got. I kind of have a rule in my classroom, or here's another teacher tip, is with kids, is like, really the last thing that you say to them is what they're going to remember. So if they're climbing on top of the table and I say, get off the table, get off the table, get off the table, all they hear is table, 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 and I'm on the table, But if I say feet on the floor, feet on the floor, feet on the floor, they hear floor, floor, floor. And so, that's kind of how I like to end, is with an invitation to do, what I want the client to do, to an invitation that's going to stick in their mind of like, what's the next step? Like, end with what you want them to do.
This is so good, Ashley, because you're coming at it from a teacher's perspective. And I hear you, and I'm coming at it from a marketer's perspective. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the call to action. I tell people, don't ever create any piece of content, don't create any web page without a call to action. People need to know the next step. Like, we've given them all this great value, all this information. What do they do next? And we want to make it crystal clear. We don't want to give them a bunch of options. One clear next step. This is so good.
This past year, I went out of my comfort zone and I auditioned for a play in our local theater, and something I'd never done before. And one thing that I learned, but it was super exciting, got me, to be brave for a minute. And one thing that I learned from the director of that play, he said, we are going to make sure that the opening number is fantastic and the closing number is fantastic. Everything in between, whatever. But that's what people will remember. They'll remember the opening and they'll remember the closing. So kind of I do the same with content. If we can engage them from the beginning and then end with something memorable, that call to action, I think that's what we should be focusing on.
It's so important because when you think about creating content, you don't have a captive audience like you might in a classroom. Like if you have an Instagram post or a YouTube video, right? They're not captive. They can scroll away. And so they always say that initial hit is, so on an Instagram post, it's the hook, it's the top line hook, or on a YouTube video, it's the first 3 to 8 seconds, you gotta grab their attention. It's so important.
And that's what I was saying, at the beginning of when we were talking, I know that my kindergartners, their sweet spot is probably 8 minutes, 6 to 12 minutes max, but 8 minutes. On Instagram, it's even shorter, like you're saying, 4 seconds. You have 4 seconds to grab their attention. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. But, start off strong and then end with that big invitation.
When we talked about having you on the podcast and talking about content, I was really thinking content marketing and social media marketing, right? And I think all of this fits so well with that. But as we've been speaking, it's really occurred to me that it doesn't matter if it's paid or free content, right? All these same rules apply. So you can really take your framework here and apply it to your paid programs or your online course or whatever. We're always creating content, right? For our audience and for our clients. It's just, is it paid or is it free? Do you have any tips for how you would take this and, create an online course, especially as a teacher, or approach your coaching program?
Well, I think it lends itself really well to creating a course, because like we were saying before, you might be 12 steps ahead of your client. And if I'm sending out emails, or if I've created a course with multiple units, or multiple small modules within that unit, I don't want to pack too much information into one communication. It's kind of like playing a game of chess, right? When you play chess, you just move one piece at a time. And so they just need one move at a time. You're not going to give them 7 moves. That overwhelms them, or that they're not really grasping it if you're moving too quickly. So if you can break it down into smaller pieces, but each piece is working towards the end goal, I do think it lends itself really well to creating a course, because you've got your end goal in mind, you've got your plan, and then you get to break it down into these smaller learning activities for your clients so that they're getting the best results. The brain can't process all of that information at one time. And so it is important to break it down step by step.
Yeah, it's so true. I see so many coaches and entrepreneurs get tripped up when they're creating those online courses, because they're trying to cram all of their experience and knowledge into one online course. And really, the audience member, the student, the client, they just get so overwhelmed. They don't even complete the course. You're taking your lifetime lifetime experience and your master's degree and all of that and cramming it into a $97 course. It just doesn't work. And so I love that, because this is great. Like, if you really are 12 steps ahead of your audience, that's great news. Break it down into 12 courses. Have it be like a stair-step approach where, you say, hey, if you're trying to create this result, start here. Once they get that, they go to the next program or the next module or the next course. After they get that, they go to the next thing. And this is great for product creation and having a whole suite of products as opposed to just one program.
I really love the one-on-one coaching that I'm doing right now. But I don't go into my one-on-one 50-minute session without a plan. I direct the direction of my session. And so I don't want to go in without a plan. And so I do go in with a plan. Now, does that mean if I have a worksheet that we're working through that we complete that in a 50-minute session? No. Sometimes I will have I will have the plan and we'll just go through the beginning part of my worksheet, and that can create us like a deep dive. We'll deep dive into that first portion, and we might not get through the entire worksheet, but I have that direction that's leading me and guiding me and hopefully guiding the client to their end result that they want.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. This has been so great. I know this is going to help so many of my listeners when they have that dread of like, oh my gosh, what do I post? What do I do? So thank you for sharing your framework with us. I know that a lot of people are going to want to check you out and see how they can follow you online. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
So I am on Instagram, Ashley Wood, EDU coach. And yeah, that's probably the easiest way that you can find me, and my website as well.
Great. And we'll have all of those linked down below in the description.
Right.
Thank you so much, Ashley. This was so helpful.
For sure. Yes, it's good to see you. And I really enjoyed the podcast. I'm loving the podcast, by the way. I listen to it every week.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Super Bloom Coach, the podcast for life coaches ready to 10x their business. If you enjoyed today's episode, I know you'll love my free course, 5-Figure Clients, the secret to attracting high-ticket coaching clients. Inside, I'll show you how I went from attracting bargain hunter clients to exclusively booking clients at a 5-figure price point. If you're ready to start working with clients who understand the tremendous value you bring to the table and to stop working with clients who don't, then this course is for you. Over 4 days, you'll learn why offering a high-ticket service is better for you and your client, how to craft your irresistible high-ticket offer that practically sells itself, and the 2 things you need to convey in order to sell high-ticket services. Also, how to position yourself as a luxury brand leader so you can charge a premium for your top-notch services. Sign up now at mariariona.com/free-course and start attracting those high-ticket clients today. Don't miss out on this valuable opportunity to elevate your coaching business. Get instant access to your first lesson. And before you go, make sure to subscribe to Super Bloom Coach so you never miss an episode. We've got some incredible content lined up to help you 10x your coaching business and achieve your dreams. If you found value in today's episode, can you do me a quick favor and leave a review? Your feedback helps me reach more coaches like you who are ready to elevate their business. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.